Here we are. Welcome, everybody.
Yay! Hello.
My computer is so far behind that it still says we're not here. Oh,
Oh,
there we
yeah,
are.
there's a delay.
Weird.
So,
Okay.
welcome to YouTube Live. So, we have Dustin, and is it Henry or is it Henri like the French?
It's Henry. It's
Oh,
Henry.
okay. So, we've
Yeah.
got Dustin Henry, and your TikTok name is
Sneaky Rabbit 3.
Sneaky Rabbit 3. Okay. And then
Yep.
Spoonie Mel, everybody knows. And I am your host, Pamela Curtis of End Pain Stigma. And we are here tonight to interview Dustin because he went pretty viral among the chronic pain community for your videos that were just absolutely amazing as far as like capturing what it is for chronic pain patients in the ER. So, what brought you to that?
Thank you. So I have a lot of friends and family who suffer from chronic pain of various sorts, and it's very frustrating not only watching them try to get help, but they can't, but also seeing everybody's reaction around them. Um, so it's just a lot of people, I don't know, it's just they don't want to believe it. They run out of empathy, but they're kind of like, all right, well, I'm over it already, and it seems like it's easier for them to just deny that it's there and deny that it's real, than it is to validate and, I guess support them.
Well, I know from my stepmother's illness, she had chronic pain for a long time when I was in high school, and I had a splint on my knee, oh, both knees actually, going back and forth for 4 years. And I thought that I understood chronic pain because of that. But it wasn't until I got neuropathy later on in life and chronic migraines that I went, oh, I did not understand that you lived on an entirely different planet, you know? So
Right.
yeah, it's easy to think that you know, and until you know, it's an entirely different world. So, Mel, you've got a whole bunch of questions that you've collected. Thank you very much for doing
I
that.
do. I do.
So,
And if you see me looking, I'm looking to see your comments so that I can keep up with you guys too. And I'm so excited. I've been really excited for this for a few days. And anybody who's ever been in my life knows that I always have a handy dandy notebook. So Dustin, how did you feel when your videos first started to like really take off?
I didn't really know how to feel, to be honest. I was really surprised that I was getting a lot of comments, a lot of views. I felt very humbled, but at the same time, I'm like, why am I, why is the guy named Sneaky Rabbit 3? Why is he the one saying this? Why isn't it already said before? Like, why isn't it already being talked about? And it's just hearing a lot of stories kind of really opened my eyes up to see how big the problem is, especially in the medical field. Like, I was seeing it myself, but I didn't realize, how often this happens where somebody goes into the ER for help and they are verbally abused. Um,
Yeah.
so,
And
yeah,
and gaslighting occurs a lot,
yeah,
constantly.
absolutely.
Um, that's funny. And if you noticed in your comment section, people were tagging a couple of us all over and over and over again.
Hmm.
So I'm really grateful for everybody who sent that video, that first video, and tagged us in it because Dustin is amazing. We really need more Dustins.
Well,
So
thank
on
you.
that point, how do you think, and let me preface this by saying, as chronic pain patients, we do understand that there is a problem with a certain drug seeking community. And we
Hmm.
know that ER staff specific or particularly deals with it all the time. So how do you
Hmm.
think we could separate ourselves in those medical professionals' minds when they're so jaded by the negative side of it?
Okay, I think that's a very valid question. it's a very tough question, because I've been thinking about it a lot, trying to figure that out. It's just, I don't know. I think it's very complex in the way that the problem is not only with the nurses, with the doctors, it's being jaded, it's being burnout, it's with the idea, I guess, perception of what we think pain is. So if you want, I don't, it's just, I guess maybe with the way that you approach the nurses, and I don't even like the way that sounds because that makes it feel like a victim hate. This is how you don't be a victim. So I
I
think,
understand, and I think too one of the other questions I had kind of ties into what you're saying.
mhm,
Do you think that one, the chronic pain scale should be um, more known, more visible in places like
mhm.
the ER specifically? And do you think that without it, there is a better way we could explain our situation? Because I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of us do hit 10 out of 10 days, a lot
Right.
of the times. So when you say my pain is a 9 or a 10, that's when judgment instantly starts. So do you think that the chronic pain scale should be more visible, more widely known? And without that, how could we better explain our pain levels?
I think when you go in, to let them know about the things that you're doing to cope, to make it better, how long you've been dealing with it. So that way they can get a good idea of, all right, so they've been dealing with this for a long time now. Um, so if it seems like they're not in pain, they are in pain. And then maybe that's something that you can try to reiterate, like, hey, I know that I'm sitting here calm right now. I'm not pulling my hair out, but I've learned how to deal with this 10 out of 10 pain, and right now it's more than I can handle. If you see me on the phone, if you see me doing whatever, just know that that is the way that I'm coping to get by for now. But I really need help breaking through, getting through this breakthrough.
Okay, we got a question here from Mark. What is the best way to get staff to understand that my meds work in combination with each other and it doesn't work if they're separated or reformulated?
I think what you said there is probably better than I can word it. Just saying, yeah, I guess it just depends on what kind of meds you have. Just say, hey, when I take these meds together at a certain time, they really help me out a lot. If I don't take them together, they don't have that added effect. So this is my regimen that I have specifically to help me break through.
Yeah,
Does that
because
make sense?
it does. It does. Like one of the things that I know when I went in to explain it, it's like for me, this is going back to the pain scale.
Hmm.
For me, a 8 out of 10 is a kidney stone.
Right.
Um, and immediately, a lot of doctors and nurses snap into knowing exactly what that pain level is for people, something that they see commonly.
Right.
Um, and so, like for me, a 9 or a 10 migraine, you're not going to see me communicating at all. You're going to see me, just white knuckling that handrail on the bed.
Hmm.
I go to the ER when it hits an 8 and 8.5, and I'm not good enough to drive. I'm a danger on the road at that point. So,
Okay.
and then I have another question here from Becky. She's also a nurse. Have you ever been reprimanded for advocating for pain control?
Mm.
That's a great
No,
question.
thankfully I'm not. Um, I have gotten into arguments with people. I, I mean, I remember one time I had somebody, I was working in a nursing home, I had someone come in who had bone cancer, and um, they didn't have any orders. I was texting the doctor, I was texting the hospice, and I was able to get them actual physical meds at the nursing home within a couple hours.
Wow.
But I don't think I've ever actually gotten recommended or gotten in trouble. thankfully, most of the people that I've worked with, and this isn't to invalidate anybody's experiences, but most of the people I've worked with are on the same have the same beliefs that I do. If you tell me that you're in pain, I'm going to treat that pain.
That's really nice. That's really nice because I know a lot of environments are not like that. I actually worked security for a hospital that's pretty big name. It's Barnes Jewish Christian in St. Louis, and it's one of the top teaching hospitals that's out there. I mean, I've heard it mentioned in TV shows and stuff like that, and I know that we had to go to extreme lengths to protect our stockpile of drugs because there were staff taking them. There were, it was a big problem, especially because it was a large hospital and it was a level 5 trauma center. So, we were seeing all the gunshot wounds. We were seeing all the extreme, flight for life kind of stuff that would come in from wherever. So we had a big stockpile that people would try, and it wasn't just the opiates. It was things like liquid. What's the one for nausea?
Finnegan
That's
or
the one.
Celebrin?
That's the one. Phenergan.
Finnegan?
Yeah,
Okay.
liquid Phenergan was a big one, and I didn't even realize that was a street drug. But I found out that yes, it is, and yeah, it's the liquid form that everybody's looking for. And so, yeah, it was a big deal, and we actually had to lock down each ID to know, who went in the hallway even before they got to the storage closet for the medications. So yeah, it's very nice that you work with an understanding team. So, Mel, what's our next question?
Sorry, I was just reading some of the questions over here. These are pretty amazing, and
oh, who do you want me to put up?
Well, Mark said, I've had a C-section without an adequate block, so I know pain. But he began that with, it makes perfect sense, but it never works. And I think he's talking about, or he,
right there.
Mark, are you a male or a female? I don't want to call you the wrong thing.
Right.
Sorry.
It may just be a screen name that is the YouTube account. So.
Oh, you mean how I used my 6-year-old son's name for a very important Zoom meeting on accident?
Right. Mark is Karen M. She says.
Oh, okay. I think Karen is talking about explaining our pain in that way, that it makes perfect sense, but it never works. I think what is really important with your videos too is that you acknowledge what we do go through. You actually show actual scenarios that almost all of us have walked through at some point.
Yeah.
I'm curious, are you as an RN working in an ER, are you guys educated on what pain doctors have to go through and put us through to be able to even prescribe us opioids?
Yeah.
Well, I actually don't work in the ER. I work neuro PCU. But as far as pain management, we aren't really educated at all about that in nursing school or anywhere else I've been. The only information I've gotten from pain and management specialists is from friends and family.
Gotcha. And you're in neuro, which a lot of us see neurologists or neurosurgeons constantly, and a lot of us deal with neurological issues. So you understand a lot of us that have chronic pain because you work in that environment. Let me just say a little bit of what we go through.
Okay.
If we are actively being treated, and I will preface that with saying that most of us, if we are still undertreated. But if we are actively being treated, we sign contracts with our pain doctors. They're all a little bit different. We sign them about every 6 months. Tells us things like you cannot take pain medicine from any other doctor. You cannot, so many things that you have to do properly. I know for mine, it says I must submit to pill counts at any given time. We are randomly drug tested often
Every
to
month.
make sure that our levels of all of our medication, by the way, and they even check my gabapentin levels, that they are where they should be. So do you think that if all of that was common knowledge, that ER staff or quick care staff even, or nurses in general, do you think if they had that knowledge, they would feel differently when they hear the words chronic pain or pain management?
I wish I could say yes, but the honest answer is I don't know because in the end, it all comes down to empathy, that willing to understand and willing to listen. Because you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if if you're burnt out, if you're jaded, if you feel like the whole world is against you, well, you just don't care.
Yeah. So I know. Oh, we've lost your sound, Mel. Something happened. There we go.
My grandmother tried to call me.
Oh,
I'll call her back later. No worries.
that's awesome.
I think that it's even worse right now for most of us.
Yeah.
And it's very understandable because medical professionals all over are really incredibly burnt out right now from COVID. I know my cousin, she is a third-year nurse. She's worked the COVID unit over and over, including when my dad was in her COVID unit, her uncle. So I do think that a lot of us understand the burnout. And I really do understand that. I don't want to put an exact number on it, but a great percentage of people who come in and are in pain, or I know that they get frequent flyers who literally are looking for that type of treatment. So I think that we as pain patients have to understand that a little bit too. Any questions here?
Oh, I'm looking through. I'm keeping an eye on it for you.
Okay, thank you. On that note, with the pain meds, and they're not giving them anymore, but it seems like the number one treatment that doctors are going to now, even after major surgery, is IV Tylenol. So what is your opinion on IV acetaminophen?
The only time I've ever actually given IV Tylenol was after gastric bypass. So as far as regular pain meds, for anything else, I've literally never given it. I don't think, I don't know, I don't think it's sufficient because I feel like if Tylenol would cover your pain, well, you wouldn't need to come in.
Right. Right. Very true.
Very, very true. We don't always think about those things either.
All right. I have a comment here from Audria. She says nurses and doctors like you need to speak out and teach others when chronic pain patients say the same thing. We are addicts, but coming from professionals, professional people seems to actually listen. And that's a good point. How much have you thought about advocating for pain patients?
Like I said, so I did say that most of the people I've worked with seem to have the same belief that I do, but that's not to say that I haven't worked with anybody that had a very negative attitude, and I do like to have conversations with them. I like to have conversations with anybody. Um, so I've always done advocating of that kind as long as I've been in the medical field. But as far as what I'm doing now, it really never became much of a thought until recently when I guess discovered the need for it because I didn't really know how needed it was.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
to that point, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. How do you think that chronic pain patients could connect more with professionals, both to educate and to get you guys to help advocate? Because a lot of this stuff, it happens at the state level. It also happens at the national level. Like our legislators do not understand unless they're in, they have a family member who has chronic pain, just like you were talking about. So what do you think might be the best way for pain patients and professionals to connect in this way?
I think it's pretty much like anything. If you want to reach somebody's heart, you got to show them that you care about them. So I think the relationship with people with chronic pain and the medical and people in the medical field, um, I think we need to work on that so that way people in the medical field can say, hey, you're going through a lot of pain. I see you, you're valid. And then people who have chronic pain, they're like, you're burnt out, you're, you're tired of this. I get it. You know, your feelings are valid, and just show each other that we care about each other, uh, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense,
It,
and it's really good wisdom. Yeah. What do you say,
yeah,
Matt?
and I've said in many of my videos that our doctors are facing a lot every time they write us a prescription, and it's not easy for anybody in pain management right now at all. So I wanted to follow that up with, do you think that medical professionals, even if they believe the way you believe, do you think they live with a certain fear of speaking out? Because chronic pain patients, a lot of us live with a fear of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, speaking out the wrong way, and being seen as like pill pushers. So, do you think that medical professionals have the same type of fear in a different way?
I'm probably not the best person to ask because that fear usually doesn't resonate me. Um, Usually, when I should have a certain kind of fear, I don't. So when it comes to speaking out about stuff like this, I don't really have that fear. I've told everybody I work with about it. I've told my supervisor, and they're just like, "That's really cool." So I don't have. I mean, I don't really have that fear. They either like what I have to say or they don't. But as far as like my nursing license or whatever, I don't really feel like that's in danger.
And I want to tell you that we appreciate you so much. And I know that a lot of us have really latched onto you. But for us to have a medical professional who actually like cares and sees what we go through, it means the world. It's
Yes.
acknowledgement that we don't often get.
Hmm.
Do you think that there is a better way that we could advocate for ourselves? If you could give us any advice about advocating for ourselves, whether we're in with our regular doctors or in an ER setting, how do you think we could better advocate for ourselves in those moments?
So I'll do the best I can. From somebody that doesn't have chronic pain, I don't know what it's like to go through what you're going through. But I mean, maybe, like I said, if you want somebody to understand, the best way to reach them is through their heart. So I understand they're having a rough shift. I know you're having a hard time. I'm having a really hard day myself. Um, these are the things that I'm doing to try to help my pain, but unfortunately they're not working. And I'm trying to redirect. I'm trying to distract myself. I'm doing everything that the doctor said. So I'm really needing help with that. If you could please help me out. I don't know if that's always going to work. I don't know if that's ever going to work, to be honest.
No, it sounds good to me because I mean the
Yeah.
number one thing that I have understood as a chronic pain patient is that, I always tell my nurses and everything like that, hey, I'm in a lot of pain, but I can handle it. And, don't think ever that I'm putting any pressure on you. I know you guys are overworked. I know you guys have the hardest job. The doctors just fly around here like whatever, but you guys are really who save patients' lives. So don't feel bad if you need to neglect me for a little while. I can handle 30 minutes. I need something more than what I have at home. So,
Sometimes we just need to be reminded, I guess, in a gentle way that, like, you trying to treat pain early and often is the key. And if you wait till it's a 10 out of 10, well, is uh, you're you're finding yourself out at that point. So just gently remind them, hey, if I can just try and get my PRNs just as often as I can, I would really, really appreciate that. If you need me to remind you, I can do that. I understand that you're busy. I understand it's probably a crazy night for you, and I really appreciate what you're doing for me, or I very much appreciate you. If
Hmm.
we can just find a way to work together, if you have any ideas, please let me know.
That's great. That's
That's
great.
great. And we do need to be more patient. And we probably, a lot of us, most of us, need to not walk in with the expectation that we're going to immediately be dismissed. So I think that there's preconceived notions on both ends that need to be
Well,
addressed.
I can only
Um,
own up to on my side, on the medical field side, so I agree on that part.
yeah, and I don't see how an ER nurse, especially one that's been there for any significant amount of time,
Hmm.
doesn't hear the words that we say and mean from people who don't mean them. I
Hmm.
can only imagine that we are 1 to every 10, unfortunately. Um,
I've got a comment here. Jennifer Montana says part of the problem also is that nurses have too many patients and can take a long time to get to them. Pain medication, and then the pain gets out of control and it becomes a vicious cycle. And that's very true. I mean,
it,
that's why I have a hard cutoff where if I'm at an 8, I know that nothing I can do at home is going to help, and I need to get to an ER or else it's going to be, just hell. And eventually an ambulance coming to pick me up, and then it's, I need to laud, but they don't understand that at the ER that my pain has gotten so bad that it's going to take Dilaudid and maybe a lot of it, and they're so scared to give out a lot of these medications. First, they don't want to get a reputation that, you can come in anytime and just, at one point I had a doctor who had written orders for me. Thank God she had, because I was a frequent flyer, but then my pain had been proven, uncontrolled and also at a really, really high level. So I could always walk in there and I would say, look at the orders. I have pre-standing orders with the doctor that if I need pain medication, I get it and I get as much of it as I need. And I will tell you guys when to stop. I won't abuse you. But doctors aren't really willing to do that anymore because of how much harassment they get from state medical boards, how much harassment they get. And there are even hospitals that will pay their doctors and nurses to not prescribe pain medication now, which is terrifying to me. It's like, what is this, a new metric that we want to not treat pain? And yeah, I don't understand. But there is this monetary incentive in there for some hospitals. And so, it's, what do you do? What do you do? So I don't
I
know.
think it's also, I think that's a valid point. And when you were talking about how many patients a nurse can have, I think there's also a good idea to maybe know the hospitals in the area because every hospital is different, every company is different. Where I work right now, I have a cap, so I can't get more than
Oh, wow.
5 patients. So,
That's amazing.
that is amazing.
Yeah, because
so
I've
I
had,
know when I
go
go in, I'm going to be able to take adequate care of each of those patients. Um, so it's just when another city I work in, the hospital would put a cap like, okay, we're getting too many patients in, you know, unless it's extreme, life-threatening, whatever. Everybody else is going to be diverted. And there was just another hospital there that would literally take in everybody. They didn't stop. They didn't care. So just knowing which hospitals in your area, looking at the surveys, stuff like that, getting to know the nurses is a pretty big thing. just so that you can be aware, like, okay, if I go there, if I get admitted, I'm probably going to get the care that I need. You know, my nurse is not going to be completely overloaded, even if they feel like it.
Right.
Fair point.
Pam and I are very different in that, because I don't care if I hit a 10. Unless I cannot physically control my body, you are not taking me to an ER.
Right.
Part of that is because the ones that I have around me,
Hmm.
and it's funny because all of my doctors are with the same medical group out of the hospital that's closest to me, and I would not go to that ER unless I had absolutely no choice.
Right.
And
Well,
as chronic patients, we all understand. You said earlier, once the pain gets so high, it's really hard to catch up. Uh, we should understand that, because we chase pain. I chase pain every time I wake up later than 8 o'clock. If I wake up 2 hours late, it is going to take me an hour to get off my bed, and I'm going to spend the rest of my day chasing my pain.
Right.
So we kind of understand that. Do you think that if we reached out to more medical professionals and had one-on-one conversations with them, like we kind of do with you, well, we are doing with you right now, but our
Hmm.
TikToks are a little back and forth too. Do you think if we reached out and tried to speak to them, they would hear us?
I do. I think so. I think a lot of it is education, and we've been educated on pain, but at the same time, we also forget. There's so much stuff to be educated on, and if you're not used to dealing with something, or if you develop a certain attitude, or if you're in an environment that develops a certain kind of toxic culture, it's really easy to forget those things. So it's just reminding people, re-educating people, and I think a lot of us want to be re-educated. We want to do the best that we can, and we want to take care of our patients.
I definitely believe that the majority of nurses and doctors, that's why they went into medicine.
Yeah.
You know, um, if you didn't care, I could never do your job. I could never do your job, because I get connected to people really easily. And if I
Right.
got connected to somebody and something bad happened, I would not be able to handle it. I know I could never do your job. And I think I just want you to know that you can't feel our bodies. If
Right.
that makes any sense. Pain,
Yeah.
everyone wants to come in my comments and say pain is subjective, and it 100% is. Everybody
Hmm.
feels pain differently. But just like I don't understand the journey that a nurse has gone through and everything they've seen, they don't understand how it feels to live in my body. So I think that is kind of where our conversation should start, you know,
Hmm.
explaining what we feel on a daily basis, because we can do it. It just takes more of our energy, and we don't have a lot of it.
yeah.
So do
Right.
you think that'd be a good start for that conversation? Let me explain to you what I really feel in my body every day.
Right. I think so. I think also at the same time, you're gonna have to have someone who's willing to listen. I think that is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Is we all have a limit. I feel like a lot of nurses don't know how to stop and disconnect. They don't know how to leave work at work. They don't know how to, you know, it's kind of like, and I've done this before myself. You, there's someone that you love and someone that you care about, and you hear about their pain, and because it's real and they're going through that, and you just hear about it over and over again. It hurts, and you don't know how to deal with it. You don't know how to cope, and at some point, subconsciously, you're like, why are you hurting me? And then you kind of become angry at them. You kind of become resentful, and it's so much easier to stop and say, no, what you're feeling is not real, because you just don't know how to deal with that anymore. So you're just going to invalidate and say, no, I don't want to feel that way anymore. And I feel like nurses go through the same thing. They don't know how to disconnect. They don't know how to just shove that aside and say, they don't know how to feel without feeling, if that makes sense.
I wonder if it's a part of that too. And I've never thought about this in terms of medical professionals, but most doctors and nurses, their job is to fix people. And the majority of us, if we have diseases or illnesses that are causing chronic pain, chronic illness,
Hmm.
a lot of us cannot be fixed.
Right.
Yes.
And that hurts the ego bad.
Yeah, that's one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that prior to the 2016 guidelines,
Hmm.
the number of suicides among pain patients was the same as the number of suicides among doctors and nurses. That the pain that they felt, that in not being able to treat patients, in not
Hmm.
having support from the system around them, it gave the same elevated sort of levels, that it was exactly the same as somebody who deals with chronic physical pain, and it's taboo to talk about. Um,
Right.
and I really think we need to have a better support system because a lot of times reaching out for psychological help can be seen like, oh, you're broken and we need to get you off the line as quickly as possible, when actually it's somebody reaching for a valid support system. So what do you feel about that among doctors and nurses, as far as is there the support there for reaching out for psychological care?
Typically, it's not. And I would
Okay.
even extend that to first responders. So there's a very much lack of it. I will
Yes.
say where I work right now, I don't feel like that where I work right now. We even have a compassion room where if you're having a really hard time, you just drop what you're doing. The other nurses will take over for you. You just go there and do what you got to do. They also have a total compassion where they'll overcall. They'll send out a text to everybody, "Hey, we got total compassion here," and they'll bring you the resources that you need. But for most places, that's not a thing. A lot of places they'll tell you to suck it up and get over it if they say that much.
Oh,
But I think we
that
do
breaks
need
my
that
heart.
much because if we need to take care, if we want to take care of the patients, we have to take care of ourselves. And
Yes.
like
Yes.
I was alluding to earlier, I think people have, especially nurses, we have a hard time feeling what you're feeling and then just leaving it there. A lot of people just take that with them and take it so much before they stop and they just lose all their compassion.
Right, right. Because the other alternative is breaking down completely. You
Right.
can't deal with that much of somebody else's pain and not have it hurt your soul. Um, so yeah, I think that's one of the things that chronic pain patients need to discuss, with professionals is, look, we understand, if we could walk away from our chronic pain, we would too, you know?
Right. Right.
And so it's the luxury you guys have, and take it, because we need you guys to be 100% when we come for help.
Right.
So I think there's a
Absolutely.
major conversation that can be started here by chronic pain patients reaching out to their local hospitals. Who would they talk to? Who would they call somebody in HR, or how would they approach going about that?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer for it because I don't know.
Okay. Okay. So maybe we can figure that out together and come back to people with an idea of how you can reach out in your local community, and maybe give a short seminar or even record a video or something like that to let the professionals know, here's how I would like my pain dealt with. Here's how I would like to be dealt with if I have to come to the ER. Understand that sometimes I need to be a frequent flyer, but then other times you won't see me for years. So yeah. What's our next question?
Great. And my projects are piling up, but I'll start. I'm write that one down.
Awesome. Thank you, Mel.
I will get that figured out because I think even if we could send a letter, as a start, send an email, explaining how we feel in this situation. And perhaps if I finish the other letter I'm writing, perhaps I can come up with something, and Pam and I can work together and have one from End Pain Stigma that we can send out, but have as many of you as wants to sign on to it, not as a petition, but as a community.
Yeah, just a community. Anybody here in the chat, reach out to us. Our email is available through the website. You can reach us through TikTok. You can reach us through YouTube, through Twitter, through all these other places. If you want to be a voice for your community and sign on to something and send out something to your local hospital to let them know, what it's like as a chronic pain patient, we can all work on that together. That's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, I think we could do some great things just starting there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that it's very important too that we do remember the mental health of medical professionals every day, because I took on a lot of people's pain. And Pam knows that sometimes I've had to step away from TikTok for days at a time because living in my own body is torture. But then when I start taking too much on mentally, I start to kind of break down. So I can imagine for you guys, it can be the same at a higher level.
So we've got, go ahead, Dustin.
I was just going to say, thankfully, I've learned my own ways of just dealing and coping. Like when I leave work, work does not exist to me at all. I don't think about it. I completely forget about work. I do my own thing. I hang out with my kids. I play video games. I do those things. I also just want to make sure, like, I don't want to come across at all as justifying any abuse. The pain that you go through is valid and it should be treated, and it should be acknowledged, and everybody should be cared for with respect and dignity. And I won't make any excuses for abuse.
Thank you for that.
So absolutely.
I think though that it's really important, and I think it's something this conversation really has kind of focused in on. But it is really important that we try to understand where each other is coming from, because if we don't step back for a moment and go, let me step out of myself for a second and realize that they're fighting a whole different type of pattern. Their patterns are 9 people come in just seeking, and then 1 comes in who's valid. What do I believe? Where do I go? I mean, we have to understand that, because we can't have this conversation if we don't acknowledge each other's plight.
Absolutely. And I've got a question here, 2 questions actually, from Frankie. How do I get the hospitals to continue my daily home pain meds when I'm in the hospital without going into a PTSD anxiety attack and not getting looked at as an addict seeking opiates?
Okay, so that's a good question. Depending on what you're being hospitalized for, when I get a new admission, I always go through the meds. So Make sure you have a list of your medications. It'd be best if you type it out, whatever. That way, if you do get admitted, you can hand it to them and they can just read off there. And then you can say, hey, I'm on these pain meds that keep me stable. And I'm concerned that if I miss them, that my pain will get to a point where it's unmanageable. So you just have to make sure that when you are admitted, that they are putting those pain meds in, and then you can, ask them, hey, can you contact the doctor and talk about um, just restarting these home meds, or if when the doctor comes in and say, hey, um, I gave the nurse a list of my meds. They entered them in the computer. If you want a list, I have another one for you as well. Can we get this restarted? That way, my pain doesn't get out of control.
All right. And then the second question is, how do I get doctors and nurses to understand why I take morphine to treat my lung disease and my hydromorphine for my chronic pain? Yes, both are opioids, but they work differently for different conditions.
You can remind them that morphine is to help you breathe easier. We typically give it to hospice patients when they're having a hard time breathing. It just makes it more comfortable for you to breathe. So just trying to educate them on how that's working to make it more comfortable for you to breathe. And the hydromorphone is to keep the other pain under control.
Okay.
I'll add a little bit to that. And this is whether you have pain doctors or neurologists or rheumatologists, no matter who your doctor is, whoever is prescribing your meds to you, I think it's very important to know what hospitals they have permissions in.
Yes.
And the first thing I do every single time I step into the hospital, whether it's for the ER or it's for surgery, which I haven't been to an ER in years, but surgery, we all know I've had plenty. The very first thing I do is say, I want my doctor consulted on this, because if you ask, then that doctor will be involved in your care. I had my back surgery at the end of May, and my neurosurgeon made sure that he knew to contact my pain doctor before I even went to the hospital for surgery. It's really important, if you can have that, to have your whatever procedure or why ever you're in the hospital, to try to be in a hospital your doctor has permissions in, so that they can be in charge of your treatment also.
Good points. Good points. So what's the next question on our list, Mel?
I think we've talked about most of them.
Okay.
But
We've got,
you guys have any more questions?
yeah, we've got 12 minutes left. If I've missed your question, put it back in. I'm sorry you have to type it again. My vision isn't the best. That's why I keep scooching up to the screen and back again. But yeah, if you have a question for Dustin, we've got another 12 minutes. So
we wait for their questions to come in. Do you have any additional advice or thoughts that you want to give us as a community?
Trying to think. I really did think a lot. I think, we really went over most of the things I talked about. It's just, yeah, I think, unfortunately, as we talked about with nurses with jaded attitudes, I think it's just really easy to fall into, because I'd be lying if I said I've never ever felt that way. You know, there's been times where I've been jaded and burnt out, and I'm just like, great, more pain meds.
yeah.
It can be very frustrating,
Well, we have
especially.
a great comment here from Audra. I really think Dustin and his team need to make videos for medical professionals. So there's a good word of support for you and what you're doing.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I appreciate every video you make.
I
because
think it's just, sorry, go ahead.
knowledge, it's
Oh,
just acknowledgement that we don't often
Mhm.
get.
So I feel like it's kind of a culture that we kind of have to fix.
yes.
Because in the medical
Yes.
field, I love being a nurse, I love nurses, but it's so easy to fall into a toxic culture where you're just negative, 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 and you really have to fight that. I go to work every day. I don't know if you watch Parks and Rec, but I
Yeah.
try to be like Leslie Knows. Like I try to be annoyingly positive every time I go to work. Like, hey everybody, hello friends, it's gonna be a great night or a great morning. It's gonna be a great day. Yeah, I'm really excited. So you really have to stay positive, and otherwise, if you're not combating that negativity, you're gonna fall into it without realizing it.
Anika says, thank you for doing this. And we thank you for being here as well.
Guys,
Well,
sending questions to me. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much, Dustin, for being here. I think these are important moments.
Absolutely.
We are almost each other's arch enemies in so many ways, and some of that is one bad experience.
Yeah.
So I
right.
think it's important that we conversate, because one bad experience is why I won't go to the ER unless I can't control somebody making me go.
Well, that's why I actually started. I mean, I feel I used to have to drive 30 miles to an ER that was decent. I live in a small Colorado town, and we just got a new hospital, and they're touch and go. Sometimes they've treated me really great. Other times they have really been like, oh, it's her again. And it was because I was having a kidney stone that was being badly controlled. I had to run around town to try and get, my past kidney stones. I'd go into the ER, I'd get pain medication. As soon as they saw the kidney stone on the scan, they'd get me
Mhm.
medication like that. They'd then have, a script waiting for me that would last me a week, sometimes two at home, depending on whether I was passing it or whether I was going into surgery. And, this last kidney stone, I hadn't had a kidney stone in ages, and the runaround was insane. I had to go
Mhm.
into the ER twice in the same night just to get a script that I could have at home. Then I had to follow up with, because, they all said, oh, go to your pain doctor. My pain doctor said, oh, we don't do acute medications. Go back to the ER. I went back to the ER. Okay, so we've got, enough pills to last me for 12 hours. Go see the urologist. Well, the urologist, they said, go to your pain doctor. And I was like, no, I've already been down this road.
Mhm.
My pain doctor is not going to handle. So the runaround was just absolutely insane, when before we used to treat this stuff, and it doesn't make any sense to me. You can see the kidney stone on the scan. You can see that it's
Mhm.
in my urethra. You know how painful these things are, that people would rather give birth, every day of the week and twice on Sunday rather than have a kidney
With
stone.
absolutely no drugs.
Right. Yeah, just raw dogging at birth. And I've had other people who said they'd rather be shot than have a kidney stone, rather be stabbed than have a kidney stone. And suddenly it's so impossible to get medication for a kidney stone that you can prove on a scan. It's like, how bad have things got? It's insane. And so
Right.
I don't understand it. I mean, it blows my mind.
And I think, unfortunately, it's also a very political issue. And
Yeah.
I wish so bad. And Dustin, I'm curious in our last couple minutes here how you feel about this. I
Mhm.
wish so bad that we could get the politics out of our doctors' offices. Is that something you see in the medical environment? Is a lot of politics involved, whether it's hospital politics or, you know?
Not, I mean,
politics.
not really. The biggest thing, I mean, to me, it kind of seems like sometimes there's um, too many cooks in the kitchen that spoil the soup. You know,
That's
you
very true.
have
Yeah, right.
so many people that are just so many specialists, and it's just like I just need one person for one thing. Like, just I need someone to step up and like just do something about it. You know,
Yeah,
everybody is so like just focused on just that the nephrologist is focused on their thing. I don't know. I just feel like we've lost sight of the big picture. I have a funny story, hoping it's relevant or more, at least more than it is in my head. But
go
a
for
couple of
it.
months ago, I had a patient attack me. Um, the nephrologist was in the room, and this patient was an elderly man. He's very confused, and the nephrologist comes and he's like, "Hey, the patient's trying to leave." And I go in there, and the patient's at the doorway, and his Foley bag, which is still connected to the bed, and I'm like trying to keep this patient from like running out and pulling that Foley bag out of his urethra. And the patient started attacking me. I'm like, "Hey, asking the doctor, I'm like, can you go press the staff alert button?" And he's like, "Which one is it?" And he's either going to press staff alert or code blue. And at that point, I'm like, "Press any of them. I don't care." And so what does he do? He goes and grabs the Foley bag and brings it over to me, hands it to me, thinking that he did a good job. And I'm like, "Thank you. That's the same thing." And so I finally get security up there, and we finally get it de-escalated. Um, but the nephrologist was just so concerned about that Foley and just his job. And when everything was done, the nephrologist went over to the patient like, by the way, since there was some tugging on the catheter, there will be some blood in the bag. Like he
Oh my gosh.
he could have
Ton of
given me right. He could have given me orders to get this patient calmed down. Anything, but he was just so worried about blood being in the Foley bag. Like he just had no concern about anything else.
Oh my gosh.
that. Yeah. I when people panic, they they fall back on what they know best, I guess.
Right.
Oh my gosh. So Frankie says, Dustin, thank you for bringing awareness to chronic pain patient from a medical provider's view who support chronic pain patients when surrounded by less supportive and understanding chronic pain colleagues, chronic pain patient colleagues, excuse me. So, yeah, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much for being our first interview. We really appreciate it. And
Well, thank you for having me.
yeah, yeah, keep doing those TikToks, man, because we're
Yes.
seeing so
You
much
know, keep
awareness.
sharing them.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sharing them. And we are
I
So,
will.
I'm definitely going to work on a letter. You
yeah,
know how many projects are piling up on me?
we're going to need to get you some help, you know,
I'm going to need a clone.
right, right. Well, there are a bunch of people out there, thank God, who are willing to volunteer for organizations like ours. So if you don't already know, go to the website, endpainstigma.org. We work with both doctors and nurses, healthcare professionals in the pain community, and also with chronic pain patients. And we've got a big event coming up on September 3rd to raise awareness for what's going on for pain treatment these days. It's gotten absolutely nightmarish. So again, we thank you for being here.
Thank
And
you so much, Dustin.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
And if you'll hang around with us for a little bit afterwards, after we shut down the stream, we
Yeah.
can talk. Yeah, cool. So thank you for our first live. This was spectacular. So
Thank you
so
guys
much.
for questions that you sent me.
yep.
too.
And we'll schedule. We'll let you know when the next one is coming up. So, all right, everybody, have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Stay vibing.